Life is often so busy, taking us here, there, seemingly everywhere. When you aren't able to make it to church, we hope you are fed and nourished by listening to the preaching of God's Word wherever you are at the moment. In the meantime, take care, and God bless.
Well, it's been more than a week since we celebrated Christmas. The crowds in Bethlehem are thinning, and people are starting to pack up and go home. A lot has happened in these past few days. There's a lot to think about. As Joseph and Mary look back, do they wish that they had done better than a cattle stall for God's son to be born? Do they wonder maybe if they would have started their trip to Bethlehem just a little bit sooner, might they have found a room? And maybe if Joseph would have reached out to someone in his extended family, maybe they would have had a place for them to stay. Maybe if they would have tried a few more places, knocked on a few more doors, they would have found a room for them. But that's all behind them now. Things did work out. The baby is fine. The baby is healthy. And so now, like the rest of the visitors in Bethlehem, Mary and Joseph will soon be packing things up and heading home. Little do they know that this wouldn't be the last time that Jesus is turned away for lack of room. Hindsight has a way of bringing a certain sense of reality to our circumstances in life. Maybe if I had started getting ready for Christmas just a little sooner, things wouldn't have been so hectic at the last minute. Maybe if I had studied more for my test, I would have gotten a better grade. Maybe if we had saved more, we could have bought that house that we really wanted. Maybe if I hadn't filled my life with so much stuff, there would be more room for Jesus. The beginning of a new year is a time when we do some looking back and also some looking ahead. We think about the good things that have happened and even some of the not so good things, although maybe we don't spend quite as much time on those. We start looking ahead and we make plans for the new year, each year hoping that the new one is better than the previous one, which has been especially the case at our household for the past 2 years. We are really hoping that 2022 will be better. Some people say that it's not always a good idea to look back. You need to leave the past behind you. Sometimes they say, don't look back, because you're not going that way. At the same time, others would say, if you don't take a look at the past, you're bound to repeat it. I would have to say that there's a little bit of wisdom in both of those perspectives. There's a road between Motley, Minnesota, and our cabin, Highway 64. Some of you may know it. It's just a little over 33 miles long. I know that because there are mile markers, 33 of them. When we reach mile marker 33, we're only 20 minutes away from our cabin. Mile markers serve a couple of purposes. They tell us how far we have to go, and they also tell us how far we have come. And it's good to live with both of those perspectives in our lives. The older we get, the more we have to look back on. Some might say the older we get, the less we have to look forward to, but I don't know about that. I think I have a few things left to look forward to. My life certainly has had its ups and downs. I've passed a lot of mile markers along the way, and I hope to pass a few more. I have made mistakes, and it's important that I see them. But if that's all I look at, my perspective for the future isn't so great. There are also many good things, successes, celebrations, and milestones for me to look back on and to celebrate, and many more to look forward to. And so it is important that we look at our lives from both directions. It's a lot like packing to move to a new house. You have to look through the things that you have accumulated over the years and decide what you want to hold on to and what things are you willing to let go of. What things are no longer important to you, and what things are you going to make room for? Both are there, but I wouldn't look at it as a good idea to try to take all of it with you. These past 2 years have caused many of us to do some reflecting on our lives. There's been a lot of loss, a lot of grief. We have felt some fear and we have seen some anger. And for some of us, time has been spent reprioritizing what really is important in our lives. Even a few of our most treasured traditions have had to take a back seat to other priorities. I'd like to think that there's some good in that too. For many years, the traditional Bach Christmas celebrations have included immediate family, extended family, friends of the family, co-workers, and neighbors. Jim's sister Tricia was the instigator, organizer, and hostess. When she got sick a few years ago, our Christmas traditions changed. No one could pull it off quite like Tricia did. And so our celebrations got a little smaller and a little less elaborate. At first, it was hard to say goodbye to some of the hoopla. It was fun. But letting go and scaling back was also good for us. Then when our son got married, we learned that our daughter-in-law's traditions were also simpler, still filled with rich tradition, but a little more quiet and a little more peaceful. There's something appealing to me about that too. While I'm not ready to completely change our traditions, Christmas or otherwise, it might be a good time to rethink a few changes. After all, God did not always do things in traditional ways or expected ways either. God changed things up. God broke tradition. If God had done it any other way, I wonder if anyone would have noticed that God really was up to something. So whether we're talking about Christmas traditions, our jobs, or family events, looking back, we can see how our culture puts a lot of emphasis on piling on and packing in to make sure that we take advantage of every opportunity to do everything humanly possible to make the most of every minute. We make room in our budgets for things we enjoy, like going out with friends, taking nice vacations, having a few hobbies. We make room putting in long hours at our jobs because we enjoy them, or they provide the income that allows us to have other things, or both. And we make room to help others because we're grateful for what we have and because it's a good thing to do. Making room is about tending to those who are important to us, people that we believe to be a part of God's family. Because when we make room for them in our lives, we are also making room for Jesus. In Matthew, just before the Passion narrative, Jesus is talking to the crowds and to his disciples. He explains to them that whatever we do, in whatever way we make room for those in need, we also make room for Jesus. He says to them, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing, and I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." We make room for Jesus when we make room for others in our lives. We have a general rule here at St. Andrew that there is always room for anyone who wants to come, to the extent that we're allowed. Our licensing, of course, limits the number of children that we can have in our classrooms, and the Department of Health and local covenants with our neighbors limits how many we can have at camp. But whenever and wherever possible, in every aspect of our ministries, from Sunday school to confirmation, from small groups and choirs to worship and to fellowship, we try to make room for everyone who wants to be there. I'd like to think that if one day we had this endless flow of people walking through our front door to worship or to have communion or to pray or eventually sing, we would find a way to welcome them. There might not be a chair for everyone, but we would have a place for them. It might not be the most ideal or the most comfortable, but there would be room in the inn for all of them. All of them. The stranger and the friend. The lesbian and the gay. The addict and the abused. There is room for all of them at St. Andrew. And not only would they feel welcomed, they would feel like they belong here. In her book, Daring Greatly, Brené Brown talks about the difference between fitting in and belonging. When surveying a group of 8th graders about these two words, here's what they came up with. One group said, belonging is being somewhere that you want to be, and they want you. Fitting in is being somewhere where you really want to be, but they really don't care one way or the other. Another group said belonging is being accepted for you. Fitting in is being accepted for being like everyone else. And a third group said, I get to be me if I belong. I have to be like you in order to fit in. Brene Brown goes on to say that trying to fit in is a barrier to belonging. Why? Because fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be in order to be accepted. Belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. Finding room, making room, it isn't about the physical spaces. It isn't about managing our time well so that we can just squish one more thing into our day. Nor is it about not spending money in one place so that we can spend it in another. It is about belonging. It's about feeling like we belong and helping others to feel that they belong as well. Jesus wants us to feel like he belongs in our lives, and he wants others to feel like they belong in our lives too. And so we might ask ourselves, looking back, where in our lives have we made room for Jesus? When have we welcomed a stranger? How have we made others feel welcome and that they belong in our congregation or our neighborhood or our community? Those are good questions to ask as we turn our sights to the year ahead. How and when and where will we make room for Jesus in 2022? And so today, while we take a little time to look back, it's also time to look ahead to new beginnings and new possibilities. I'd like to suggest that you try to do this in 3 different ways. First of all, look back once in a while through the lens of faith. Faith will be honest, but it won't be too critical. Faith simply sees things for what they are. Faith is fair. It won't let you skip over things that seem trivial because even trivial things matter. When you show gratitude for the kindness extended to you by others, that matters. When you don't, that matters too. When you get short with your spouse or significant other, that matters. When you say you're sorry, that matters too. Faith won't allow you to avoid the hard things. That's where some of the most important lessons are. And faith recognizes the joy in life that deserves to be celebrated. So often we hesitate to celebrate, whether it's because we think that we look like we're boasting or if we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't know. But celebrate the joy in your life. Good things deserve to be celebrated. And faith uses love as a yardstick. It trusts God's grace and forgiveness. And finally, faith always walks with Jesus. Faith is never an island unto itself. Look back once in a while using your lens of faith. Second, keep your eye on the future. That's where hope lives. And we all need hope. Hope gives us strength and it keeps us going. It points us in the right direction and it lights the way for us. Hope holds us together when so many other things in our world want to tear us apart. The divisions among people today are so sharp. In our society and around the dinner table, we are getting stuck on the points of our greatest disagreements, and it is hurting our family. If we're to live into a future that gives hope for the next generation and beyond, we cannot stay stuck. Hope is what will keep us going. Keep your eye on the future. That's where hope lives. Finally, live in the present by making room for Jesus now. We have a tendency to want to do too many things on our own, when in reality, we do nothing on our own. There is nothing that we there's nothing that we can accomplish without Jesus. So let your guard down just a little bit, slide over, and make room. Make room for the goodness in this world. Make room for tending to the existing relationships we have and for making a few new ones. And most importantly, know that as you go about that work, Jesus is working on it too. To me, it's ironic that a man who spent his entire life making room for others found himself rejected time and time again. That even though when Jesus came to what was his own and his own people did not accept him, Jesus found room in you, in me, and in this world, and made a home there. Bethlehem was not the last place that Jesus would be turned away for lack of room. But Jesus' talent for making room is greater than our talent for squeezing him out. To have room means there needs to be a few empty spaces. And maybe we need to feel that emptiness once in a while in order to recognize that there is a place in our lives for Jesus. And I believe we all have a little bit of emptiness waiting to be filled. The story of Christmas, the story of Jesus, is the story of God revealing God's self to us, a story of Christ Emmanuel, God with us, a story of promise, and it creates what it declares. God is with us, always, in our hearts, in our lives, and in our world. There is room. There is always room. So if you haven't made your New Year's resolutions yet, here you go. Make room. Make room for Jesus. Set aside a little time for looking back and for looking ahead. See if you can find those empty spaces in your life, those places where Jesus can dwell in you, and make room. And if you have made your resolutions, well, maybe there still is room for one more. Happy New Year.
We hope you found this week's message helpful as you think about how you will live out your faith each day. If you would like to support the ministries at St. Andrew Lutheran Church, you can do so by having your credit card information available and then texting a gift to 952-260-9007. Thank you, and God bless.